Always great to talk with, and that is Rob Cooper. Coach, how's Coach Coop doing today?
I'm doing good, Steve. How are you doing, man?
Doing great. Doing great. Well, we had Matt Wood on the show earlier in the week. And, of course, we've talked about him before, but we talked about the dynamic with the program. As we're watching the College World Series in Omaha's where a couple of good things happen for your club. What can that do, in your opinion, for off-season workouts, bonding, and so forth?
Well, I think what it shows, and especially when you look at, the way we played in the first game there, and then, we almost finished the comeback off against Rutgers, and still feel like Rutgers should have been in the NCAA tournament. But, and we beat Maryland earlier in the year, and they had a good run. And so what it shows is, that margin of where we want to be and where those teams, where we are currently it's not that far. And it's really about mindset and belief and learning how to win. And I think that that's probably the thing that guys took out of it the most is that, okay, this is what it takes to be successful. This is what it takes to win. And we can do it. And now, it has to carry over. One of the biggest things we talked about, Steve, when after the last game in Omaha, we're in the locker room and I said for you guys, I appreciated what everybody on that team did to get the culture where it needed to be and move this program forward. And I told the returners, I said, guys, like every year is different. So even though there's a lot of you that'll be back next year, we can't just assume that we'll just pick this right up. Like you got to build it, you got to nourish it, you got to protect it, and so I think you're seeing guys do that this summer, and they need to be if we want to have the kind of year that we know we can have.
How anxious are you now to see how the draft plays out next month?
Obviously, I want to see our guys that are available, eligible to get drafted, get rewarded. There's not a guy in the world that I feel more fortunate to have coached than a guy like Matt Wood. And, I know he's going to hear his name at some point. And, we've got some other guys that have an opportunity to get drafted. And as I've said to you before, if the Red Sox called me today, I'd sign. I still want to sign a pro contract.
Right.
So it's every kid's dream when they pick up a baseball to be able to hear their name called and start that journey. So, first and foremost, I'm rooting for our kids, and then we'll see how the draft impacts us and roster management. But it's so much harder now with them moving the draft back so late in the summer.
Yeah.
Especially at a Big Ten school where we can't just offer some kids thinking that, okay, this guy might get drafted, and then all of a sudden he doesn't get drafted, and now we got to tell somebody that we don't have their money anymore. So it's a severe disadvantage for us, but you know what? If it means our guys are realizing their dream of getting their name called, then we'll deal with that disadvantage so that they can personally chase it.
As a college coach, Major League Baseball's made a lot of moves in the last couple of years. One of them was obviously taking the draft, which would have already taken place under the old system, would have taken place 2 weeks ago, and moving it to the All-Star break and how they've handled the number of minor league teams and so forth. What's been your opinion of how they've handled their business? Because, for all this, they save about $1 million a team by doing this. But how do you think it impacts the total game of baseball?
Well, look, there's a couple things on it, right? First, one of the reasons why they moved the draft so far back is because they don't have to pay the new minor leaguers that are going to sign here in a couple weeks, until that, so they're paying, and again, you're talking about billionaires. So for them, we're talking about nickels, right? They're saving nickels,
right.
Which,
yes,
again, there's a reason why they're billionaires. Okay. They know how to handle money, but overall, I don't know how, at the end of the day, it's beneficial for the game. You've taken minor league franchises away from areas where that might be the only professional baseball that they get to see because, it's so far away from a big league park or, and there's I just think that, development time. Like personally, I think if the Red Sox or Yankees or whoever, the Cardinals, it doesn't matter, whoever wants to have 10 minor league teams, they should. If they want to invest money in that, they should be allowed to do it. And it just, to me, you look at all the guys out there. Mike Piazza, Hall of Famer, would never have been drafted under the current structure because it's 20 rounds. So it's just it's all driven by business, and I don't know how much it's really helping our game.
College World Series is going on right now. It's become really a great showcase, and ESPN has a lot to do with that, to their credit. It's become a great showcase for the college baseball game. When you watch it and you've seen the growth of it, what have you thought?
Well, I was fortunate enough as a student assistant and a kind of a GA to be at Miami and go to the College World Series twice. Mm-hmm. And back when it was at Rosenblatt, and it just, I just remember everything that you ever saw on TV, and then you get there and it was even better, right? I mean, it was because, I remember sitting in the stands on a day we didn't play and people asking, what program we were with and all this, and them telling us stories about how, it's their family's tradition every year to pick a new team, a team that gets to Omaha, and pick them and root for them. And then just the whole city of Omaha and it being embraced. And so, it's a really cool, it's a really cool deal. And the city of Omaha does such an amazing job of embracing it and making it what it is. I'll be honest with you, I'm a little concerned with the crowds. Like, I remember the crowds always being full, and maybe I'm wrong, but they're not as big this year, and that's a concern. I don't know if it's just we're still getting out of COVID and people, or whatever, but I would say that's the only thing that kind of worries me a bit about it. But I like a lot of where the college baseball game is at as far as growth, but I'm also extremely worried about it as we start, with NIL, with the transfer portal, with I'm curious what the transformation committee is going to do here in about a year or so, and so I'm a little concerned about the overall college game. But man, it's sure fun to watch it on the College World Series and the regionals and everything like that. The thing I love is just the emotion and the joy and that the kids are playing with.
In the recruiting process, are you now asked about NIL?
We're starting to, yeah, we're starting to, and it hasn't completely trickled down to Big Ten baseball yet. It's a big issue in the SEC and the ACC and the Big 12, and it's going to become a big issue in the Big Ten here pretty quickly.
You mentioned Rutgers not getting in. Obviously, the SEC and the Big 12, especially the SEC, have become dominant in this. What does the weather's obviously plays a role in this, but what can the Big Ten do to close that gap?
Well, I mean, to be honest with you, prior to COVID, I mean, we had 5-6 teams in the NCAA tournament every year, and right. It was 2019 when Michigan lost, in the championship game.
Right.
So, I mean, to be honest with you, this year overall the Big Ten wasn't as strong, but I don't care. I mean, I'm not just saying this as a Big Ten conference member, but there's no way in the world Rutgers should have been left out.
Right.
They won 45 games.
Yep.
They finished second in the conference, and they lost in the championship game.
Yep.
I think really what it comes down to is, the committee can come out and say, RPI, this, that, or the other thing, but when the Big Ten doesn't have any representation in the room, that's a problem. And it shouldn't be like that. Like, you shouldn't have to have representation in the room. You should pick the best teams, and you're always, it doesn't matter the way, same thing with the NCAA basketball tournament. You're always going to have schools that should be in that don't get in. And that's just, it's tough. But, I just think it was one of those years for our conference as a whole. But I like the trajectory of where the Big Ten was going and where it is. We just have to keep getting there.
All right. So the hometown club up in the Northeast is playing a lot better now. They've won 3 in a row. Yet in the last 10 games, despite winning 7 out of 10, they lost a game on the Yankees. The Yankees have given up a total of 8 unearned runs for the season. I mean,
it's funny.
Coop, that's amazing. Their pitchers are getting 3 outs an inning. Everybody else, some teams have to get 4 and 5.
It's funny. I was having dinner with my oldest son, and we were watching the College World Series, and on another TV, there was a highlight of the Yankee game, and I'm like, they just won't lose.
No, I know.
And the Sox are playing good too, but I think that's, as we all know, like the expanded format. I think once you get into postseason, obviously anything can happen. But I hate to admit it as a diehard Red Sox fan, but the Yankees are good. They're really good.
Yeah, I know. That's the thing. I begrudgingly think they're really good.
I know. But hey, they lost 2 in a row, so maybe the back pages of the New York tabloids will, put some pressure on them.
Yeah, I think so. Hey, Coop, it's always a pleasure. Great to see you. Can't wait to see you again really soon. Thanks so much for everything.
You got it, buddy.